A Town Called Panic is a stop-motion animated franchise that originally premiered on Belgian television in 2002. It was created by Stéphane Aubier and Vincent Patar, who, outside of A Town Called Panic, are probably best known for co-directing the 2012 film Ernest and Celestine. While originally a small production that never saw its way outside of Belgium, A Town Called Panic eventually grew in success after receiving international distribution in the United Kingdom. By and large, the rest of the world wouldn't be exposed to it until the release of its feature film spin-off. Since then, the franchise has received a very small cult following around the world, although it remains largely unknown in most circles. I personally have never heard anyone talk about A Town Called Panic outside of a few niche internet discussions. Even searching up A Town Called Panic online is difficult because it seems like a lot of sources are under the impression that it only encompasses a single feature film. In reality, A Town Called Panic began its life as a 20-episode series consisting of 5-minute segments. I can't seem to find any conclusive information about the airing of the show, other than it ran between 2002 and 2003, so I don't know if it had its own time slot, or if they were aired as segments between other shows. Perhaps any British or Belgian viewers of the channel can fill me in on that. After this, the feature film was released in 2009, followed by new short films being produced every few years afterward. At this point, A Town Called Panic has been around off and on for nearly 2 decades, with the same creative team helming every single one of its productions. This is a clear sign of a passion project, although from the outside looking in, you might be asking yourself, why? For a program that uses such crude character designs that look like they were taken right out of a child's toy box, there's a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to A Town Called Panic. I personally think this franchise contains some of the best surrealistic slapstick comedy I've ever seen put to animation. The constant barrage of jokes, rapid-fire movement, and amazing timing takes something that could have been a cheap, nonsensical program aimed at children and elevates it into an absolute work of genius. Other shows that try this approach wish that they were as funny, charming, creative, and bizarre as A Town Called Panic. In order to better explain why this is, let's take a look at everything A Town Called Panic has to offer to determine what makes it so special. A Town Called Panic centers around 3 characters, a cowboy, an Indian, and a horse, named Cowboy, Indian, and Horse. Cowboy and Indian are very rambunctious and childish, often coming up with some crazy scheme that drives the conflicts, while Horse is more mature, in stark contrast with the zaniness around him. Cowboy and Indian regularly have a sibling rivalry dynamic, with them constantly trying to one-up each other. At other points, they're working toward a shared goal and causing troubles for everyone around them, including themselves. This trio oddly has a classic comedy dynamic that gives them the traits of a pseudo-family, with Horse being the adult and Cowboy and Indian being the children. This reminded me of shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force or The Young Ones, where the characters end up taking roles that you would see in a family setting, even if they're not actually related. We don't know why Cowboy, Indian, and Horse live together or what their backstories are, but we don't really need to know. All that's necessary to understand is that they're together now, and this is their dynamic with each other. Despite its title, the characters don't really live in a town. Heck, I don't even know if this qualifies as a village. Instead, the 3 leads live in the middle of nowhere, with their only neighbor being a farmer named Stephen, his wife Janine, and their daughter Bernadette. Stephen plays the classic sitcom role of the grumpy neighbor and yells every one of his lines, regardless of whether or not he's actually angry, although he often is. Janine is portrayed as much sweeter than Stephen and is less prone to anger, although she will occasionally reach a breaking point, mostly due to Indian and Cowboy's shenanigans. Bernadette is there, I guess. Actually, after the original series, I'm not even sure of that. Stephen and his family often play just as large of a role as Cowboy, Indian, and Horse, with several episodes of the show focusing on them and omitting the main trio altogether. Stephen's farm animals, while not the most distinct in terms of their personalities, have a lot of funny moments too. Beyond them, the cast also consists of a policeman who lives in a shack and deals with traffic and reported crimes, usually caused by Cowboy and Indian, the postman who delivers the mail, a bear who becomes angry whenever his sleep is disturbed and attacks the perpetrator, a tour guide who looks like a nativity set Jesus, a guy named Simon who basically is a guy named Simon, and Robin Hood. Yes, Robin Hood is the character in this show, although here he is portrayed as an extremely inept hunter. Now, based on these descriptions, it may sound like the show has pretty shallow characters, and to be honest, it kinda does, but that's not exactly a criticism. This might seem like a strange thing to say, but A Town Called Panic's lack of character depth is a breath of fresh air within the current landscape of comedy. Nowadays, mostly due to a stronger emphasis on serialization, a lot of comedy shows build very deep and layered protagonists that develop over time. Now, I'm not knocking that approach whatsoever, as a lot of my favorite shows use this methodology extremely well. However, the unfortunate downside to that is that I do think that the art of keeping things simple has unfortunately been kind of lost in recent years, and audiences need a bit of a reminder of how effective that approach can be. A Town Called Panic is probably one of the best examples I can give when it comes to churning gold out of a very rudimentary foundation. Its only real goal is to be extremely funny, and it more than succeeds at what it sets out to do. Another thing I have to say about the humor here is for as offbeat and insane as it is, it also feels strangely natural. After a while, you just kind of accept the weird trippy logic that's being thrown at you. For example, let's break down what happens in the episode Cow Hulk. It opens with a rock from space landing on the ground and bouncing into Cowboy's soup. He eats it unknowingly, while Horse offers Cowboy and Indian a milkshake, causing a fight between them. Cowboy's stomach rumbles from anger, causing the rock to turn him into a red monster. Monster Cowboy stuffs Indian into their fridge and throws it out the window at Horse, who is doing yard work. The monster goes outside to continue attacking, but hits himself on a rake, which transforms him into a caveman. Later that night, the rock is triggered once again, causing Caveman Cowboy to turn into a different beast. He destroys the living room, but hits himself on a door, which turns him into a monkey. Realizing something is wrong, Horse drives him to a doctor, but the car is stopped by a cow crossing the road, turning Monkey Cowboy into a red ape. He beats up the cow, but hits his head on their now destroyed car, which transforms him into an alligator. The trio return home to clean up their mess, but the cow, out for revenge, climbs up a ladder into Cowboy's room and smashes his toy boat. This turns Alligator Cowboy into a red dinosaur, who chases the cow down the ladder, only to slip and puke up the rock, turning him back into normal Cowboy. Horse and Indian clean up, and it ends with them all going to bed. That's how much can happen within 5 minutes, or 4.5 minutes barring the opening and closing credits. At first, you might get whiplash from the pacing and offbeat humor, but the more you watch it, the more you just kind of accept everything at face value. Oh, Stephen's Pond leads to an underwater world, inhabited by cone-headed merman creatures? Of course it does. Horse digs up a tour bus containing the 1986 Mexican World Cup team, who challenges them to a soccer match? Makes sense to me. A bowler, an Elvis impersonator, and 2 dogs are blasted into space after looking for lodging in an alien ship disguised as a water tower? I'd be surprised if they didn't. This is a show that is not afraid to hit the ground running from frame 1 and still manages to escalate itself from there. Even if an episode starts off with a simple premise, where they go with it leads to absolute lunacy. A lot of the episodes end abruptly, without any sort of clear conclusion. Other times, there is a conclusion, but it seems completely random and out of left field. It feels like you're watching a weird stream of consciousness, where anything can happen, and anything does. I've always appreciated that aspect in surrealist comedies, because it's an indicator that the work in question was very successful at transporting you to a new reality, where logic works much differently than ours. The voice acting is often incomprehensible, as it's filled with a lot of really quick dialogue and grunts. A lot of the time I can't even really make out what's being said, and I think that's intentional. If the dialogue needs to be heard, you will hear it, but if the joke is funnier without clarity, then it will take that approach. It really makes me wonder what the recording sessions were like for both the Belgian and English cast. I've seen it both subbed and dubbed, and I think that they're both great and manage to capture a similar tone. Normally I recommend watching animation subbed, but considering the madness that is happening on screen, it might actually be hard to keep up with the subtitles at first. One thing I should probably note is that even though this is a children's show, some of the characters say words like bastards in the subtitled versions, which is kind of strange to me. Maybe it's not a swear word in French, which I guess makes sense since French people are usually bastards. I'm kidding. Relax, mon ami. But by far one of the most distinct aspects of A Town Called Panic's style is its animation. As stated, the show uses very crude character designs for its cast. If you were to see a still image of A Town Called Panic, you probably wouldn't think much of it. Seeing the show in motion is a totally different story. I'm not lying when I say that the movement in this show is the claymation equivalent of the Hotel Transylvania movies in terms of how fast it is. It complements the pace of the stories in this regard, resulting in one of the craziest shows I've ever witnessed. A lot of people call the visuals crude, which is true in a lot of ways, but this is an instance where they use the crudeness to their advantage to make great art. I absolutely love the little stylistic choices, like how the characters all stand on green circles, and how they usually move by wobbling around. Many of the episodes also end in big Scooby-Doo/Benny Hill style chase sequences, where you can see the animation quirks pop out even more. The animation always feels fluid, and because the show is so funny, I never found it to be exhausting. A rule of thumb for a lot of television comedies that they teach you is that writers generally try to hit at least 3 jokes for a potential minute of footage. A Town Called Panic hurls a joke at you every 5 seconds. A lot of times you aren't even done laughing at one thing before 5 more comedic beats are hit right after. Any situation you can imagine occurring, the show tops it before you can even finish your thought. You could probably watch every episode at half its regular speed and still end up missing a lot of the humor. I'm not sure what kind of budget the show had per episode. I can't imagine it was very much, but they unequivocally made the most out of what they had in spite of any restrictions. It's janky in the most effortful way imaginable. I've never seen something try so much in such a short time period and have it land this consistently. I will say that I don't think this approach is for everyone. Anyone looking for a show that doesn't feel like it was made by a child experiencing a sugar rush or an adult with a cocaine addiction will probably feel a little bit overwhelmed by this experience. For me, I don't care if the pacing of a product is as fast as the Lego Movie or as slow as Jane Dielman. Hey, another Belgian production. I hope you guys appreciate the shoutouts today. All I care about is whether it resulted in a quality product. A Town Called Panic could have easily fumbled with this much ambition, but instead, it knocks it out of the park. Despite initially only airing in Belgium, and probably France, it didn't take long for A Town Called Panic to receive attention elsewhere. While the exact details aren't clear, someone at Aardman Animations, the legendary studio responsible for Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep, saw A Town Called Panic and absolutely loved it. This led to Aardman purchasing the international rights for the series in 2003, with their own in-house team working on giving it an English dub. To understand why this is a big deal, take a wild guess as to how many times Aardman has done this outside of A Town Called Panic. The answer is 0. Not once. Sure, Aardman has done its fair share of co-productions with other companies, but this is the only time in their entire history that they purchased the rights for an international show to create their own dub and distribute it to television networks. Goes to show that even the studio that is responsible for some of the slickest and most beautiful stop-motion animation on the planet can still see the value in a show that's much more low-budget and visually simplistic. A Town Called Panic's English dub did air in the United Kingdom on Nickelodeon. This proved to be fruitful for Stéphane Aubier and Vincent Patar, as they started getting projects greenlit left and right, both in their home country and in England. The best example I can give for the latter are, surprisingly, advertisements for Cravendale Milk. Even though these ads aren't technically under the A Town Called Panic brand, I will talk about them briefly, as they reuse a lot of the same assets from said production. These milk commercials were supposedly created between 2007 and 2010. Instead of focusing on the characters from the series, these shorts follow a cow, a bicyclist, and a pirate. Beyond reusing elements like sets and props, the Cravendale ads also feature the same animation style and sense of humor as A Town Called Panic, so I like to think that they take place in the same universe. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some references to these commercials in A Town Called Panic, which I didn't pick up on previously. I was only able to find 6 of these ads, and I'm unsure if they made more, but they are definitely worth checking out, especially only at 30 to 45 seconds long each. This proves that even with a more restrictive time limit, and the goal of selling cow juice, the style of A Town Called Panic manages to be extremely entertaining. But how would this style translate into a much longer format? Around the time that the Cravendale Milk ads were in production, the creators of A Town Called Panic were also busy working on their biggest, and probably most famous entry in their entire franchise. Based on the few people I know who have heard of A Town Called Panic, this 2009 feature film is usually cited as their introduction, myself included. However, I want you to picture for a minute, if you could, knowing about the television show and hearing about the movie being in production. I don't know about you, but my initial thought in that scenario would be, how the hell is this gonna work? The comedy is great for a 5-minute short or a 30-second milk ad, but could it possibly sustain itself for the length of an entire feature-length outing? To be fair, the film clocks in at about an hour and 15 minutes long, which is quite short for a movie. But to put it into perspective, the entire A Town Called Panic series accumulatively runs for about an hour and 40 minutes. That makes this movie about the length of 15 episodes and nearly doubling the amount of previous content. There are so many ways this could have went wrong. Stretching it out to this length could run the risk of A Town Called Panic turning into something that it never was, resulting in fans being unsatisfied. On the other hand, if they did stick with the format of the original series, there's a good chance the comedy could wear thin, especially for the uninitiated. Considering that this was my introduction to A Town Called Panic, and it inspired me to check out the rest of the series, you can probably already guess that this movie is not only good, but it's exceptional. Not only does it stay true to its original style, but the movie manages to be absolutely hilarious from start to finish, never feeling overdone in the slightest. The experience I had watching this was actually quite similar to that of watching the Shaun the Sheep films, where I was absolutely astounded at how well and faithfully they were able to adapt silly shorts into a big screen adventure. Speaking of which, Aardman themselves were not involved in this production, or any other A Town Called Panic product from this point forward. As far as I'm aware, the film does not have an official English dub. That didn't stop it from being seen by an international audience, as A Town Called Panic was selected as part of the 2009 Cannes Film Festival, where it received its debut, making it a cult favorite amongst critics. The story follows Cowboy and Indian building a barbecue for Horse's birthday, while Horse attends music school. After the incompetent duo order 50 million bricks accidentally, their house collapses under the weight of them. This causes Cowboy, Horse, and Indian to rebuild their home, only to find out a mysterious creature is stealing their walls during the night. There's a lot more twists and turns along the way, but this is A Town Called Panic after all, so describing what happens might take longer than actually watching it in motion. On top of the main trio, the movie also features many of the show's recurring characters, such as Stephen and Janine, although Bernadette is missing for some reason. Maybe the creators forgot she existed, which would be understandable. We also get introduced to many new characters, particularly Mrs. Longray, Horse's music teacher and love interest. I like how she randomly calls Horse throughout the story. For some reason, it kind of reminded me of your dad calling you in Earthbound.
Shut up, Dad! Come on!
Beyond her, the merman creatures reappear as the main antagonists of the film, with their leader being given the name Gerard. The merman creatures only appeared in one episode of the original series, or maybe two. Maybe two. So for this movie to use them as part of its main conflict seemed kind of random, but random is an asset when it comes to A Town Called Panic. The bear, policeman, postman, and Simon also pop up, so while we are missing a few characters like Bernadette and Robin, we got most of the main players back. Like with any movie based off of a TV series, the budget for this is going to be much higher than the average episode, or possibly even an entire season. A lot of animated shows use this to up the visual quality, but considering A Town Called Panic was known, and I would say celebrated for its cruddy aesthetics, how is this film going to look any different, even with a higher budget? Not much. The characters maybe look a little bit less rough around the edges than their television counterparts, but not significantly. Instead, what the film uses its higher budget for is a lot more environments and props than we were used to previously. The television show had a lot of recurring set pieces, such as Horse's house, Stephen's house, or the hill between them. And even if they did branch off into another location, it was often using a similar grassy landscape that were probably reused from episode to episode. While you'll definitely see those iconic locations in the film, there's a lot more variety in where the characters go outside of them. The music school, snowy wasteland, robot interior, inside of the earth, and underwater town all look totally distinct from each other, which makes the movie more visually stimulating while still being able to replicate the style of the series. The lighting is also more dynamic, with several darker environments and detailed skies that I would even go as far as to say look kinda beautiful. I also really like the 2D opening credits. Bottom line is they kept what worked while expanding on the show's horizons. So yes, I think this movie is great. It might be my favorite A Town Called Panic material out of anything that they've done. It's madness and hilarity from beginning to end, nothing more, nothing less. If you want to watch the movie, then there is a DVD of it released in North America, although it's pretty rare, out of print, and goes for quite a bit of change on eBay. The DVD does seem to include some really great special features, such as a 52-minute long making-of documentary, deleted scenes, and interviews with the filmmakers, so I would be interested in getting my hands on it at some point. Luckily, the movie isn't that hard to find online, and I believe there are several streaming services that host it depending on your country. After the film's release, Vincent, Patar and Aubier weren't afraid to experiment even more with the runtimes, as instead of returning to making episodes or another feature, they attempted to find a sweet spot in between. Audiences would have to wait 4 more years for more A Town Called Panic content to be produced. This eventually came to fruition in 2013 with the release of a new short film called A Christmas Panic, also known as The Christmas Log. Even though I call it a short film, it's about the length of 5 episodes at 26 minutes long. As the name suggests, this is a holiday special where Cowboy and Indian accidentally destroy Horse's Christmas log, causing Horse to call up Santa and tell them to not deliver presents to their home. Cowboy and Indian try to make it up to Horse by getting him another Christmas log, but since the store is sold out of them, they come up with several different plans to try to steal one from Steven's family. Much like the film, you can tell that there was a lot more production value going into this short than the series, with much more varied environments and even camera angles. This in every way still feels like A Town Called Panic, showing that this format can work just as well in 25 minutes as it does in 5 or 75. Christmas Panic aired on Belgian and French televisions in December of 2013 to commemorate the holidays and let everyone know that A Town Called Panic was back in business. Aubier and Patar kept the 26-minute format as they conceived their next project in the franchise, Back to School Panic, aired in 2016. The story of this one sees Cowboy and Indian planning a cruise to tropical islands, only to have that taken away from them when they realize that they accidentally scheduled it on the first day of their school year. Once at school, the two learn that they can win a trip to the moon by calculating the difference between it and the Earth. Prior to this special, I thought Cowboy and Indian were supposed to be fully grown adults who were extremely immature, but the premise of this one, and even the last one to be honest, seems to imply that they are literally children. Either way, it was a good way to reintroduce Mrs. Longray as their teacher, and it was pretty funny learning that they go to school with Steven's animals. Overall, while I think I slightly preferred A Christmas Panic, Back to School Panic is another solid outing, especially its climax that might be the most visually creative the franchise has been up to this point. 2016 also saw the release of another short, although this one actually was shorter than an episode of the series. The Noise of Grey features the 3 main characters in a room that kind of looks like their house, except without any color. They proceed to make music, write and paint the walls, until it annoys the homeowner who yells at them. At least, I think that's what happened. This short does stick out by only being 3 minutes, but also by being done in one shot, with the camera never changing its position. Not sure what the context is or if there even is any, but it's still an entertaining watch that adds even more variety to the series' outings. With 3 successful shorts under its belt, A Town Called Panic was back, but there was one problem. Since Aardman was no longer producing an English dub, and these newer shorts weren't getting screened in film festivals like the feature was, there was really no international distribution for them at this point in time. However, 2016 wasn't over for A Town Called Panic, because before the year's end, the shorts and series were picked up by Gkids, a company known for their international distribution of foreign animated features, particularly in the anime genre. Their acquisition of A Town Called Panic led to the release of A Town Called Panic Double Fun in September of 2016. This was a feature-length repackaging of A Christmas Panic and Back to School Panic that was released theatrically with a new dub. While I have seen the dubs for these shorts, I wasn't able to find the actual Double Fun movie, so I'm not sure if there was anything added to it, or if it was just the shorts played one after the other. On the topic of these dubs, I do have to say, I do not find them to be nearly as good as the Aardman voiceovers. They do not recapture the tone of the original French voice acting the way that the previous dub did. This is especially true of Horse's new voice, who sounds a lot dopier and less gruff, which doesn't really fit his character. Cowboy also sounds a little bit too high-pitched for me, although Chief and Steven sound okay, I guess. Oh yeah, that's another thing I should probably mention. For these English dubs, they changed the name of Indian to Chief, I guess because they thought it was offensive or culturally appropriate or something. I'll let you be the judge. While I don't think you can go wrong watching either the sub or the dub for the original series, for these newer shorts, I would probably recommend that you watch them with subtitles. Thankfully, you can do either one easily. Shortly after the release of Double Fun, Gkids put out A Town Called Panic: The Collection on Blu-ray in fall of 2016. This set included all 20 episodes of the original series, both subbed and dubbed, Christmas Panic and Back to School Panic subbed and dubbed, and the Noise of Grey special with subs only, since a dub was never produced for that one. The only thing this collection was missing was the movie, which I'm assuming was due to some rights issue. Beyond that one omission, I would recommend this Blu-ray as the best way to watch everything A Town Called Panic related up until 2016, since it can be a bit difficult to curate everything. That difficulty would only increase as we ended up seeing 2 more shorts after this collection's release. In 2019, we went back to the 26-minute format with The County Fair. The plot for this one involves Cowboy and Indian studying hard to pass their exams so that Horse will buy them tickets to go to the county fair. They surprisingly pull it off, but Horse suffers a bump on the head, which gives him amnesia, causing Cowboy and Indian to travel back in time in order to find the tickets themselves. I have to say, second only to the feature film, this might be my favorite outing from A Town Called Panic ever. The time travel plot leads to a lot of absurdity and produces some of the funniest situations in which the cast has ever involved themselves. Hilarity from start to finish, with constantly escalating stakes, and possibly my favorite ever climax where they get to the fair itself. Even by the standards of an already great franchise, this one is a gem. 2 years after the county fair, we received what, to this day, is the most recent short from A Town Called Panic, entitled The Summer Holidays. In this outing, Cowboy and Indian watch a pirate movie in theaters, which inspires them to create a ship with help from Steven's animals. They do so, but before they can take it to a lake to sail it, the duo accidentally destroy Horse's car, which he was going to use to take Mrs. Longray to Spain. This incentivizes Cowboy and Indian to win money for car repairs by entering a bicycle race. This is another fun outing, but out of all of the 26-minute shorts that they made, this one is probably my least favorite, only for the reason that the bicycle race plot is recycled from an episode of the show. Even some of the jokes are directly lifted from the episode, such as Cowboy and Indian setting their opponent's wheels on fire in order to sabotage them. This was the only time where it felt to me like the creators were rehashing a storyline they had done previously, and while the short is still very funny, that did make it feel not as fresh as previous outings. Mind you, the bar set by A Town Called Panic is very high, so even if The Summer Holidays wasn't my favorite thing they've ever done, I still recommend it to any fans of the show. Following the county fair and the summer holidays, these shorts were repackaged into feature films, but only in France and Belgium. In 2022, The 3 Histories of Cowboy and Indian hit theaters, and was a compilation of Christmas Panic, Back to School Panic, and the county fair. Why they didn't include Summer Holidays is beyond me, since this compilation apparently came out after that was released, but I digress. It didn't take long for that one to hit theaters as well, as 2023 saw the release of The Grand Vacations of Cowboy and Indian, which was a double pack of the county fair and the summer holidays. Unlike Double Fun, these repackaged versions never made their way outside of France and Belgium, but the 2 shorts are readily available to be purchased on Vimeo. Hopefully we can see a physical release for them in the future. Whether you're watching the movie, or the show, or the short films, or even the milk commercials, A Town Called Panic is amazing. This franchise knows how to take surreal and slapstick comedy to a level I haven't seen previously, and it does so with great success. It's zany, hysterical, creative, smart, and never tries to be more than what it is. It's kind of a shame that it's still mostly unknown, outside of France and Belgium, because this is something I could see having worldwide appeal. Thankfully, while it may take some digging, A Town Called Panic is available in its entirety on various formats. To streamline that process, I'll share my guide to tracking everything down for those of you who want to own it legitimately in North America. Purchase A Town Called Panic: The Collection on Blu-ray, which features the entire series, along with the Christmas Panic, Back to School Panic, and Noise of Grey shorts. Then, buy the movie on its own separate DVD release, and go to Vimeo to put down money for the county fair and the summer holidays. I am aware that there exists a comic book adaptation of A Town Called Panic that was published around the same time that the film came out, but sadly to my knowledge, that has never been translated into English. In terms of the viewable content, you can really watch the series, 5 shorts, and the movie all in one afternoon. It adds up to less than 5 hours. Granted, you might want to take a breather considering how off the wall it is, but I'll leave that to your judgment. As of this writing, it's been 4 years since the release of the last short, so I speculate we're probably due for a new entry in the not-so-distant future. I would like to see some new shorts focusing on other characters too, since the ones that have come out have mostly stuck to cowboy and Indian storylines. Granted, Cowboy and Indian are probably the funniest characters, but I still missed the variety of the show and how some episodes would focus on Steven's family or one-off characters. Maybe the new shorts could see the return of Robin or Bernadette, which would be cool too. Before I sign off, I want to mention that outside of A Town Called Panic, Patar and Aubier and Vincent Patar have kept busy with other projects. I also know I'm probably butchering their names, so yeah, apologies as usual. As mentioned in the beginning, their most famous work, arguably even more than A Town Called Panic itself, is their co-directing effort on the movie Ernest and Celestine. I think if you watch Ernest and Celestine, knowing that it's from the same creators, you can see elements of the type of comedy you'd find in A Town Called Panic. Unlike A Town Called Panic though, Ernest and Celestine tells an emotional story with deeper themes on top of its humor and is overall much more grounded. Considering that movie had a third co-director, a different writer, and was based off of a series of children's novels, it does kind of make sense that the overall voice would be more distinct from their other work. Still, Ernest and Celestine is a really good movie that a lot of people overlooked upon its release, so check that one out too if you haven't. Unfortunately, outside of that, not many of Aubier and Patar's projects have been distributed outside of France and Belgium. Prior to A Town Called Panic, I am aware that the duo released a series of short films called Pick and Andre, which revolve around a magical pig and an evil horse. While I haven't been able to find these with English subtitles, the silver lining is that much like A Town Called Panic, the humor is very visual. Even without knowing the language, I was still able to find some enjoyment in the bits and pieces that I found of it. Pick and Andre also make cameos throughout A Town Called Panic in various ways, which is pretty cute to see. I also found this weird cardboard cutout short film from them, which doesn't have English subtitles either, but it's pretty damn hilarious. More recently, I am aware that the duo made a series called Stinky Dog, which has a film adaptation entitled Stinky Dog: Happy Life in Paris. From my understanding, dubs for this do exist somewhere, but I was unable to track them down for this video. Maybe another day I'll talk about it. One thing's for sure, whatever Aubier and Patar have in store for the upcoming years, I'll be sure to check out anything that's readily available to English speakers. These two are absolutely underrated geniuses that demonstrated their talents on many occasions, not the least of which being A Town Called Panic, which stands out to me as one of the greatest claymation comedies of all time. Whether you're French, English, or watching it in a language that I don't even know it was adapted to, A Town Called Panic is fantastic entertainment. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to donate to our channel, follow the links in the video description to donate on Patreon or PayPal. You can also send us money via Super Chats on any of the videos. Also, join our Discord server to talk to me and our other subscribers. If you feel so inclined, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share for more videos. This video falls under fair use as a commentary. Until next time, can anyone please tell me what the hell they're saying in A Town Called Panic's theme song? I hear, yes, it's just a panic town ice cream, but it's probably in French, so I don't know.